I wasn't hired to change a life, I was hired to keep a very expensive house quiet. But the day a 6-year-old looked at my plate and said, "Can I finish your lunch?" The silence in that house cracked like thin ice, and the man who paid for that silence had to hear what it sounds like when it finally breaks. My name is Lena Morales West. Cliff was the estate, Port Meridian was the town. And if you've lived anywhere near the water here, you've heard of its owner, Graham Whitaker, the guy who turned pipes and permits into an empire. His rules were printed, laminated, and handed to me before I even set down my bag. No small talk, no questions, and the one that made my chest feel tight: do not engage the child. They said his name was Theo, 6 years old, on the spectrum, bright eyes that didn't land on people long, a little shadow that drifted from corridor to corridor, while that big house pretended it was a home. I learned the place by its sounds: the dishwasher's chatter after lunch, the soft click of the alarm at 9, the ocean arguing with the cliffs like it wanted its land back. But I didn't hear laughter, not once, and quiet can be gentle or cruel depending on what it's covering. I was eating fast in the staff kitchen. Rice beans, a slice of plantain wrapped in foil from my own lunch. When I felt eyes before I saw him, bare feet, hair that forgot the brush, a toy car in one hand, and that line came out steady as a bell. "Can I finish your lunch?" Not greedy, not shy, more like he was asking if the door was allowed to be open. I slid the plate toward him, his shoulders dropped just enough to show me trust. Works in millimeters. He took a bite and then he laughed. A small laugh like a bird in a hedge, and I laughed back because you can't fake that sound. It just happens. What I didn't know was that Mr. Owomer Whitaker stood in the hallway with a folder under his arm, hearing a sound he hadn't heard in that room for a long time. Next morning, he didn't raise his voice. Men who are used to being obeyed don't need to. He just said, "Your role is maintenance, we maintain order. Please don't encourage diversions," and I said, "Yes, sir, because rent is real, you know what I mean." I followed the rule on paper, but spirit is another thing. I didn't seek Theo out, I just stopped making myself invisible when he appeared. I hummed while I wiped the counters. I set a blue car where he always searched for green so he could correct me with a tiny shake of his head, a private joke that said, "I see you." Small sounds crept back into that museum of a home. The tick of crayons on a tabletop, the scrunch of a cookie split in 2 soft footsteps, deciding whether they were welcome. Then came the rainy Tuesday, with the flickering cabinet light, me squinting at a label that might as well have been Greek, not because I'm careless, but because I left school too young and learned to memorize life by color, and smell shame moves fast. In moments like that, it always finds the shortcut. And before I could lie, Theo stepped closer and said it, without a weapon in his voice. "You don't read that." I swallowed and told the truth. Not good at it, and he set his car down like a professor putting down chalk. "I can show you. Like you showed me the spoons." He meant the rhythm game I made out of drying dishes. He traced a big T on a cereal box. "Same as me," he said, and that was the beginning of our lessons, short and easy, letters on the floor, me saying them slow, like fragile things, him tilting his head if I mixed up B and D. Try again, always with a smile that told me I hadn't failed. I'd just paused. I taught him too without meaning to. How to hear a person's choice of words and guess the color they want. How to stir batter with an even wrist so pancakes brown and don't burn. How to share a plate and not count who got more. The staff started softening. The gate guard switched from a nod to a real good morning. A house like that notices when air moves, and Mr. Whitaker started passing the kitchen, like a man who wanted to overhear without admitting it. One night, a wrapped pack of brand new pencils just appeared on the counter. No note, no speech, and we all knew who left them. Yeah, that happened. Pride has old habits, though, and old habits get loud. When there's an audience a few weeks later, The investors arrived. Suits, gold watches, eyes that read wood grain like a prophet. Forecast, the rain forced my laundry racks into the great room, so Theo asked for capes. I tied towels, handed him a wooden spoon for a sword, and a pot lid for a shield. We dropped to our knees in the middle of a rescue, voices, small but brave when the double doors opened and the room shifted. Mr. Whitaker walked in with a laugh he didn't mean, and a face that did he didn't shout. It was colder than that. "What is this?" he asked in a tone that could freeze a wave. "Mid-crash," I said. "Play, we'll clear it," and he made a choice. "I know he regrets. This is not a daycare, Lena. You were hired to clean, not to clown." That word hit like a slap. You pretend you didn't feel. I untied the towel, slid the spoon into the drawer, nodded once, and in those 3 movements Theo shrank. The volume knob inside his chest turned down. Silence flooded back. Pencils stayed sharp in their wrapper cereal boxes, went back to being just boxes. I did my work with my head down. And on the 3rd day, there was a soft knock at my door. Nobody there. Just a notebook on the floor with 4 words in careful printing. "You shouted at my friend." I sat with that sentence until the letters fuzzed, packed my bag, because sometimes the only way to stop bleeding is to leave the knife behind. And then another knock, a door. Whitaker in the hall, not looking like a magazine cover, looking like a man who had run out of excuses. He held the notebook like something that could break and said the simplest thing. I was wrong, then he said the truest thing. I am not good at messy. I thought control kept him safe. I punished what I didn't understand. Please don't go. Pride got loud in me too, listing every floor I'd mopped, and every time I swallowed my words. But under that there was a quieter voice saying, "The door is open right now, and it won't stay open forever." I told him I'd stay if he helped me build a school for women like me. Real classes, childcare rides, pay for study hours, so they don't have to choose, open to anyone who cleans for a living, not charity dignity. And he said yes, not later yes. We called it the Open Doors Project, because names should do what they promise. He funded a bright 3rd-floor space above a hardware store, where you can hear rain on the roof and taste sawdust in the air. I brought people word traveled through laundromats and bus stops and church basements. 2 nights turned to 4. We paid for time because respect without money is a compliment, not a change. I stood in the back of that classroom with my notebook and my shaky letters and put my name on a line like it always belonged there. Back at West Cliff, the weather changed inside. The house dropped its shoulders. Theo drifted back to the kitchen like a cat deciding maybe it does like laps, after all. We read boxes again, he corrected me. Again, I'd say it again, he ate with us, not just by the clock. He asked for arroz con pollo by name. Soft at first, then stronger, and more than once I caught Mr. Whitaker listening from the doorway, without owning the room. One afternoon, he admitted he'd hired someone to look into my past. "I was trying to fit you in a file," he said, and I told him plain. "People like me don't fit in files, we fit in rooms where we're allowed to be useful." He nodded and left a stack of composition books by the sink. The day we opened the project officially, we kept the ceremony at the community center, because fancy rooms make people whisper. Mr. Whitaker spoke less like a CEO and more like a dad learning his lines. "For a long time I paid for order," he said. "Today I'm paying attention," and then he asked Theo without warning, because he knew I'd try to protect the boy from the spotlight. If he wanted to say something, the whole place held its breath, and Theo walked up and read with both hands gripping the paper. "This place helps my friend learn. She helped me laugh. We eat pancakes on Saturdays, not long." Perfect, and the room clapped like relief. That night, we ended up in the kitchen again by accident. Me packing leftovers because nothing good gets thrown away where I'm from. Theo perched on the stool toes, curled on the rung, watching the spoon slide rice into a bowl. He grinned and said, "Can I finish your lunch again?" I laughed and passed him the bowl, and Mr. Whitaker pulled out a chair, sat down, and for once let the room belong to the three of us. If you want a neat moral, I don't have one, I have. What we did with the truth we had at the time was Mr. Whitaker wrong to humiliate me. Yes, was I wrong to bend his rule before he'd earned my trust? Maybe did I cross a line by teaching pretend in a house that outlawed it? Depends on what you think the job is for people like me. To those investors, I was the help to the boy who asked to finish my lunch. I was the first person in that house who didn't treat him like a system to manage to myself. I am a woman who finally wrote her name the way she hears it in her head. Folks will say I changed Theo's life. That sounds sweet. And isn't the whole truth? We changed each other with a recipe that's not fancy. A little patience, a little space, a plate shared without counting. And when we mess up, we try again. That's the secret, try again. Now you tell me. Was I out of line for bending the rules? Was he protecting his kid or his image? Do credentials matter more than character? Have you seen somebody judged for their job, or their accent, or the letters? They never learned, and then watched them do what no expert could. Drop it in the comments. Call me wrong. Call me right. Just don't be quiet. And if this hit somewhere you didn't expect, subscribe, share it with the one person who needs a nudge to try again, and tell me where you're watching from. You know what I mean?